the mural that we had painted on the front, and I like to call it East meets West. So you'll see that my patriotic side over there on the left, and the portion you can't quite see over there, just to the left of the eagle, is actually a picture of Paul Revere, and it says, one if by land, two if by sea. And that blends over into the Japanese side over there where it says Bushido of BENSON. And the entire mural is specifically tailored to experiences that I had over there in Japan. So even, for example, where you see Mount Fuji, that was representative of a favorite place. Every time we would go to Japan, we would visit a place called Hakone. And from Hakone, there was a beautiful mountain lake. And from that mountain lake, you had just a brilliant view of Mount Fuji. Then you see the samurai warrior over the door, but you'll see that if you were to zoom in on that, you'll see that there's these ivies that are painted all the way around the door. And even the door itself, I had put in special because it fit a favorite place that we visited, where my master in Japan would take us after every training. We would go to a place called the Kakashi House. Kakashi actually just means scarecrow, but it's a whiskey house. And it was run by a very skilled chef over there. And that's where we would end our daily practices. But up until, it was an old building that was made of an old burnt down samurai boarding house. And it has some of those old boards and stuff still in there today. And but until you actually came up on the building, you wouldn't even know it was there because it was covered in these ivies. So everything, in the dojo itself and even on the mural is stuff that was specific to me and to some of those who have trained with me over the years over there in Japan. Yeah.
Very cool. Here, quick comment here. We'll just roll through these. Just quick. Remember that photo? I still couldn't believe it. I said, Michael, how old are you? And he said, 62. I said, no way. No.
Yeah.
I'm just a few years older.
Yeah, working on 63.
So I guess quick comments on these. Here you go.
So the martial art that we practice, we often refer to as the art of longevity. And there's some things, but that's pretty technical stuff, for people who train here over the years to understand why that is. But yeah, that's 62, and feel good. I don't feel 62, but I still practice and teach martial arts 5 days a week, and I practice and train typically 3, 4 to 5 hours a day between my multiple kids classes and my adult classes. So that's the lineage wall. So that's really kind of the I guess you would say the heart of the dojo is the history of the martial art that I practice. In the upper left-hand corner over there is the founder of what you would consider modern-day Karate Do. That's Gichin Funakoshi. And the big picture in the center, that's my teacher, and Master Kenjiro Kawanabe. And he passed away about 2 years ago at 92. And up until just a few months away, he was still teaching classes daily in his dojo in Natsugi, Japan. But in the 1950s, he was the captain of the karate club directly under Gichin Funakoshi. And then when Gichin Funakoshi passed away in the 1950s, he met another famous Japanese martial artist that you'll see up in the upper right-hand corner. That's Master Inoue, who is the nephew and co-founder of another famous Japanese martial art called Aikido. So he trained under the two founders of those two different arts. And I was fortunate to meet and to begin training with him in 1983, and I continued to train with him all the way up until his passing. So interestingly enough, as you'll see down there below, you'll see that there's multiple martial artists there. Those were the people that was also connected with Master Kenjiro Kawanabe. So the one directly below him is my connection and how I got to meet Kawanabe Sensei is Marty Dow. Now you'll see he's looks like he's seated there, but he was actually in a wheelchair at this point. Right. He had trained karate back in the 50s and 60s, but he stepped on a landmine in during the Vietnam War, and he blew both of his legs off. So he's actually in a wheelchair there in that picture. And so that was my introduction. Yes, certainly.
I want to stop you right there if I can, because this is really a special thing before this next photo comes up. But you mentioned Marty Dow.
Oh my gosh,
Vietnam.
I'll show that picture.
No, no, you love it. No,
That
you
was
mentioned
I'll explain that picture too here, but
sure.
so when
From the wall of fame, Marty Down, and I want to just mention this because there's going to be we have Val Olson and I have very close affiliation with the Vietnam vets of America. We're actually going to have a bunch of them listening in here today and/or replatform. Take a minute on him
okay.
because he's in a wheelchair. He lost his legs in Vietnam, and then
Yes, yeah.
he got into the martial arts. Go ahead.
Mhm. So yeah, he trained, abroad, overseas, Okinawa, Japan, a variety of things, in his early days, and became quite well renowned in his own way back in those days. And but like I said, in the Vietnam War, he managed to step on a landmine, and that didn't completely end his martial arts career. He had quite the spirit. So when I met him, he was already in a wheelchair, and he was teaching from a wheelchair, and so I was introduced later on to the person that you'll see over to the right. The Japanese man there is Sensei Clyde Kakimoto, who actually had built the connection between him and Master Kenjiro Kawanabe there in the center. So the way this worked was that Marty Dow himself had never actually met Master Kenjiro Kawanabe, but he had a student by the name of Mr. Smith who was stationed in Japan right after World War II in the 1950s. And he was fortunate enough to meet and bridge that gap between us and Kawanabe Sensei. Now, what he did was rather actually kind of unusual in the day because, as you can imagine, right after World War II in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, we were not exceptionally popular with the Japanese. So there was many Japanese at that time that really wanted nothing to do with Americans. But Master Kenjiro Kawanabe was very different. He trained in Japanese Budo, and he believed that the way of the warrior was the way to peace, and that the whole world needed what they were sharing and teaching there. So he was one of the few. So, in fact, an interesting story there is that Mr. Smith, he had taken to the Aikido class with Inoue Sensei, who was also very old at the time, and very large classes in Japanese. And one day, he'd been training there for about 8 months, and he finally got close enough to Master Inoue, who took down his glasses and looked at him and says, "Oh, no, 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 you're American. You can't be here." And that was his last day training there with Master Inoue. So Kawanabe Sensei decided at that point, he had already, mastered Aikido, had already mastered karate. And so he decided he was going to go his own way at that point, and then he was going to go ahead and take on Americans. And that bridged the gap between us and him. Yeah.
Cool.
Little history there.
Very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that wall was on in your dojo. So it reminds you.
Yes, yeah. So
of you every day.
it looks a little bit like an arrow going down. So it bridges the gap on the different senseis that he had trained with. And then in the middle, just above him, it was Sensei Okuyama, because what Kawanabe Sensei did that was a little unusual is that most people, when they take a martial art, they'll choose a martial art that just kind of best fits their style, their personality, or their character. So traditional karate was more of a hard style. These are the people that, are looking for a little bit more, aggression, so to speak, if that's their spirit and their personality, they're a little bit more, that way. And so anyway,
cool.
So he trained with him, but then when Funakoshi Sensei passed away, he started training Aikido, which actually means the way of harmony. So most people don't really do that. They'll take one. Oh, there we go again, that picture. All right, I'll explain that. Let me finish there with the kid. So anyway, He bridged that, and Okuyama Sensei taught him how to combine both the hard and the soft, and then he created his own style called Kawanabe Karate Do. And so my dojo here in the United States is actually the only certified dojo directly underneath him outside of Japan. But anyway, with that photo there, so when Donald Trump shared my post, that's where probably most people came to know me, was because it went viral. And I mean, it didn't just go viral, it went worldly viral. It went like seen by more people than there are in the United States. They're estimating somewhere between 500 and 600 million views. I was I was on the front page of the Kiev Post. I was just hoping and praying that they weren't targeting missiles over here at the dojo. And so at the time, I wasn't really prepared to go viral. So it was just on my personal page and it was shared on there. And I had millions of people visiting my page overnight. And my profile picture had a picture of me, my wife, and my family. So immediately I was concerned because not everybody was a Trump supporter worldwide. And so along with a lot of positive comments, I also had a lot of, I would say, some nasty comments and even a few threats. So I decided very, very quickly, I said, I need to get this picture of my family off there. And this was a picture I had just toyed around with it. Somebody had sent me a link and sent me this picture. And I said, oh, that's kind of cute. And I just threw it on there as a placeholder until I could get a better photo to put there. But it just kind of caught on. Everybody just kind of said, oh, that was kind of funny. Some people liked it, some people didn't. And I just said, well, it's been seen by 500 million, 600 million people at this point. Just let it go. But that was not intended to be on my profile picture. That was just meant to be a placeholder.
It's so
It
funny.
just kind of worked out that way. Yeah.
It's so funny, Michael. Val and I joked on the last show. I want to have you wear that into the studio sometime.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. That's completely an AI. The photo is real. The picture, of course, is real, but it's just a completely AI
God,
photo.
That is so
no
cool.
Superhero here.
That's so cool. Seriously, just your mastery of graphics and throwing that stuff together. Seriously, kudos to you because you're one of the best I've seen. Seriously, and how quickly you throw stuff together.